Some women are simply born rich, confident, and naturally magnetic to their desires. Let's be clear, this podcast is not for them. However, if you're a soul-driven, visionary, or entrepreneurial woman who's been on a mission to learn how to create a better future bursting to come out of you, welcome to my world. I'm Jo Warwick, and this is Rich, Sexy, and Free. I've dedicated most of my career to helping women get to their core power and unlock the missing pieces for their own unique success. You may already know me as the author of The Big Book of Love. With 30 years experience in psychology, embodiment, manifesting, and energetics, we will be exploring together the keys to becoming rich, sexy, and free. So if this excites you, don't forget to like and subscribe on your favorite platform so you can stay up to date with the podcast. Welcome to today's episode of Rich, Sexy, and Free. And I'm so excited to join with you today as I have got a new Voices panel. This is something very different that I wanted to put together to give an opportunity for women who are perhaps newer on their journey at different stages and so aligned with our theme for this month of New You, New Year. And we're really diving into that shift from disempowerment to empowerment. So I really want to introduce to you Gayle Novak, Pease, and Nancy Spano. And we're going to be talking all about that shift. Gayle, if you could introduce yourself to everybody.
Thank you for having me on the panel today. My name is Gayle Novak. First of all, I am an author of my book, From Victim to Victorious: How I Survived 20 Years of Domestic Abuse. I am also a motivational speaker, and I've been doing motivational speaking over 25 years. And I also am a coach. I'm also a two-time survivor of cancer and of domestic abuse.
It sounds like you've got an awful lot of wisdom to share, so we look forward to hearing from you. Amy, if you could please tell people about yourself.
So thank you for having me. So my name is Pease, and I created the platform called Passion From, and we help you with overcoming yourself and finding the strength to heal after a mentally abusive or toxic relationship. And new course.
That sounds amazing, Amy. I'm really excited to hear more about that. Nancy, can you please introduce yourself?
Absolutely. I'm Nancy upstate. I'm also, I just published my first book and it's called Struggle. So I'm an author, I'm a speaker, and I'm also a breast cancer. And I speak to women and children about overcoming trauma by changing your perspective.
Amazing. I'm so excited because every single one of you has such a deep and powerful story of shifting from disempowerment to empowerment. So I'm going to be asking some lighter questions, but also some very big, rich, deeper questions from you guys. Let's start first off. It is, of course, New Year. There is always a sense of wanting new you. But I'm intrigued to know, what does that mean for you in 2025? What does that actually look like for you?
So for me, that just means to simply let go of the past, realize that it is in the past, nothing to do with, what is going to happen in the future. Past is in the past. Do anything to change it. If you did make bad decisions, it's perfectly okay. You did the absolute best could in the moment, with the information and available to you. And so ruminating over visions or, maybe you're not where you want to be is not the way forward, but absolutely your lessons and then creating a plan and a path forward.
Would you agree, Nancy?
I try to always use a positive. I know it's hard. It's hard for me to not think about the struggles and I don't want to say failures that I've experienced, but I try to switch that mindset. And instead of looking at it as something I struggled with, I change that perspective and I use that mindset as a positive mindset so that I can feel empowered instead of broken down.
What does that look like, a positive mindset? If you were feeling that sense of disempowerment.
When I'm feeling down, just really hard on myself, I start with very small tasks. And one of them, it sounds silly, but emptying the dish. because I feel that I've noticed that I've achieved something. It gives me that momentum going, and then be, doing a load of laundry, cleaning up the room, taking a shower, getting dressed, putting makeup on when you don't. And that really changes the energy. And then you can't help but to change your mindset and your perspective. And for me, that's really empowering. And then I just set myself up into a whole new energetic field.
That's really great. Gayle, is that the same for you or is that different? How are you approaching your new year, new you?
It's interesting that you said doing the dishes and accomplishing something. I totally agree with you on that. I heard a speech by an admiral in the Navy, and he said every morning he gets up and he makes his bed because at least he's accomplished every morning. I have to say,
Yes.
I never make my bed because I may feel sometimes during the day that I want to get back into my bed. So then I have to get back into the bed, and then I've messed up the bed. And then it's, oh, here I made the bed and now I'm messing it up. So I'm undoing something that I did, and I don't like that feeling. So I don't make the bed unless I know that I'm not going to get back into the bed that day. I also feel like that's a wimpy thing to do. At least you made your bed. That's very minimalistic. It's like you're minimizing an accomplishment. But I like the idea of emptying the dishwasher. There's a finality to emptying the dishwasher. It's empty. All you can do is fill it up again with dirty dishes. I also like emptying the dishwasher and filling it up again before I go to bed at night and running it. I wake up in the morning and the dishes are clean. And that makes me feel good. And it does create a feeling of accomplishment. I do also have to get up and feed the dogs. I have 4 dogs, and they won't let me sleep until I feed them. The other thing is that I heard words like failure and mistake. I made a mistake. I may have had a failure. I made a lot of decisions. If I knew then what I know now, and I could go back and make different decisions, I would never have married that husband. I would never have taken that job because those were mistakes. They weren't mistakes because, again, if I didn't know then what I know now, I would have done the same thing over and over again. So they weren't mistakes. They were simply decisions. And they were decisions based on the knowledge that I had. So I've learned not to criticize myself by saying it was a mistake. It was a failure. People say, how do you feel about the fact that marriage was a failure? I was abused by a man for slightly over 20 years, verbally, financially, physically, very badly physically, in so many ways. And people say that marriage was a failure. No, it wasn't a failure. I don't consider it a failure. It was a marriage, and I walked away alive from that experience. And I learned from it, and I grew. And now I'm helping other women to not only grow and get out of abusive relationships and go on with their lives. I'm hoping through my lectures and workshops to help younger women who have no idea what abuse is or who are just beginning to experience abuse to not fall into the valley of abuse by enlightening them to this is abuse and that's abuse and opening their eyes so they don't criticize themselves and they don't by saying, oh, this was a mistake and this is wrong and it's my fault, it's my fault, it's my fault. I try to explain to them, not your fault. This was not your fault. This was not your fault. So I'm starting the year by saying, no, this is not your fault. You didn't make a mistake. This is not a failure. Did you learn from it? Are you growing? Are you moving on in your life? You're doing great.
It's interesting. The theme for everybody is at all different varying degrees. And I think that's really important to understand when we think about that new version of me, the new era, the new chapter. We're all at different frequencies and different vibrations. We're all at different spaces. And it's funny, you said the thing about making the bed. I've seen that speech as well. And I actually always make my bed. It was one of the things I was taught when I was at boarding school. And for me, I do it because I like clean energy. I like a clean space. I like to know that I'm getting on with my day. I can't think of anything worse for me than getting back into a grotty old bed that I slept in, because the energy of what I've slept in is already in the bed, and therefore I need to get rid of the energy from when I was sleeping. Even if I went to bed later on in the day, I don't want to get back in the bed that's got the energy from when I like to clean up my space, and I'm very aware of that. We all have different methods. And I think what you were saying also, Amy, was about mental cleanup. When we think to ourselves, I want to let that go. It's the mental cleanup or the physical cleanup of cleaning up your dishwasher. There are two parts, aren't there? There's the empowerment of doing the physical, but also the mental. And you got to have both in your language. You got to have both in your actions. You got to have both in your behavior. That's a really important. Based on that new year, new you, what is the era you are now choosing for yourself? This new era of your life. What chapter are you claiming for yourself now moving forward? What do you think of it in 2025, or the chapter that you're choosing to live now? What is it that you're claiming?
I am definitely to be completely empowered. And I think what that looks like is to become financially stable so that I can, one of my dreams, because I overcame cancer and I lost my dad to cancer, is I want to write St. Jude a huge check. Like, I would love to give them a check for $1 million. And in order for that to happen, I have to be full of abundance, financially stable, financially independent, whatever that looks like. So that is a huge.
So let's make that very clear. So you're saying this is the era of you being financially free.
Absolutely.
In financial abundance. But you said about being empowered, but you're in an era around particularly being financially empowered.
Yes.
Okay, awesome. Amy.
So the era that I'm in is that I am finally stepping into my strength and into. I have an unwavering foundation. I know exactly where I'm headed. And that is to use my experiences to help other women who have experienced this sort of abuse or any kind of abuse in their lives. I've done the reflection from the past, and now it's all about strength and not letting anybody take that away from me again. And that was the biggest thing that I learned throughout the almost 20 years it took me to today. It was a fight. It was a struggle. It was the hardest thing I did. But, it was the best thing I could have ever done for not only myself, for my own family, my kids. My daughter gets to see what that looks like. I didn't have that luxury. My mother was very mentally weak, and not to blame her at all, but she didn't know or understand what a healing kind of journey looked like or what that would do. All she knew how to do was exist in her world and take care of the people that were around her, which was honorable for sure. But unfortunately, she ended up passing away at a very depressed state because of the men from her past and in her life and how they did her wrong. And I was happy that I got to her and with her. We did have that. That's something that, after watching her go through what she went through, I'm just not going to be me, and I am going to be the generational curse breaker. And my dog stuff's going to come at you. People are going to abuse you and take advantage of you. But that doesn't mean that you have to go down this road of absolute self-destruction because somebody decided to be stupid with you.
That sounds like a wonderful thing to pass on in this period of your life, being the teacher of something very different, even if it's just to your child, let alone anybody else. That sounds like an amazing chapter. Gayle, for you, this chapter of your life, you've already had an incredible story. But this chapter of where you are now, what are you leaning in for this era that you're choosing from 2025?
I'm moving along the line with Nancy that I'm looking for additional finances, because it's amazing how my parents retired at 65. And I remember when they retired at 65, and it was a big deal. And we didn't think they were going to live very much longer. It was like, oh, yeah, they're going to retire and then they're going to die. And it was like, but yet my father died from an error during a surgery at 88. And my mom lived until she was 94. But you don't realize how much money you need to continue living. I was very fortunate that when I finally was able to escape my abuser and get a divorce, first of all, I was able to finally escape him with my life and without any additional abuse, because my cousin flew in from Las Vegas and helped me disappear in the middle of the night. I finally got the divorce and I was able to get some support, which totally blew me away. A lot of women don't get support, but if I had not gotten any kind of support at all, I don't even know where I would be financially. I would be desolate because the government doesn't take care of you. I want to change some of my speaking to talk to women's groups about you need to save some money, because when you get older, don't count on support. You may not have a husband, but you and your husband need to be saving money now for when you retire. Start now. Save $5 a week, save $20 a week. Just even if you just put it into a regular savings account, do it now because you're going to need it.
Absolutely. You know that on this podcast, I am a big fan of empowering women around money. We are called Rich, Sexy and Free. But I have to say the approach that I'm very much is about empowering that mindset around money, that independence, and of course, not looking to somebody else. I'm going to ask you a bit of a juicy question, ladies, because you're all stepping from that place of saying, yes, there has been abuse external to you. So I want you to reflect and maybe share how you think you've maybe been your worst abuser. I know from myself that on my own journey of stepping into my own empowerment, from a position of someone who experienced abuse, sexual abuse, physical abuse, I don't hold those labels anymore. I very rarely talk about it because I came to realize that the biggest shift that had to happen in my life was the fact that I was the one who perpetuated abuse to myself. I was the one who spoke to myself so appallingly. I was the one who constantly judged what my body looked like, what my face looked like, my voice looked like, whether I should own a voice and not have a voice. I would love to know where you think you may have been and overcome the ways that you have abused or judged yourself or criticized yourself, all of that where we've put ourselves down.
Yeah, so this is actually a huge part of the course that I have where we teach you to find your strength and your foundation to go on a healing journey, is being able to identify from your past the difference between self-blame and self-accountability. Some of it, absolutely your fault and, wasn't your fault. They were just a mean person taking advantage of. But you also need to understand, that they were targeting the weakness that was inside of you and they could see it. And that is why you fell for the abuse to begin with. The love bombing and all of that makes you fall in love with these kind of people or makes you think that they are on your side. Those are the things that we need to address. And if you never address those things and identify those things within yourself, you're just going to fall back into another abusive relationship. That one friend who, always picks that kind of guy. And this is why, because she's never looked inside and reflected. I didn't have any confidence in myself. I was super shy. And speaking to people in general, I would get this huge rush of nerves and anxiety that was almost unbearable. And so I would make myself really small. I wouldn't speak to people. I wouldn't offer up any opinions. In fact, I would hope that I wouldn't get called on at school and maybe even try to hide under my desk so my teacher didn't ask me any questions. I was adopted at a really young age. I had always had abandonment issues. I don't know what that was even. And, to have somebody just give you attention and love you who you are in the moment, the love bombing, it felt really good. And so that is exactly why I was targeted, because I didn't have the self-confidence. They knew I wasn't going to stand up to them. They knew that I was going to not hold them accountable to anything. I wasn't going to confront them. I feared confrontation, feared losing these people and doing things for me, the right things for me. I feared losing until I just couldn't take it anymore. And when I had to finally reflect on everything that was going on so I could change the direction and the course of my life, that's when I started to figure out, the big problem is really me. Yeah, they have their issues. Yeah, they're crazy. I'm going to keep running across these kind of people at all stages of my life if I don't fix this. And so now here I am, and I talk about it and teaching other women, that this is really the way forward. You have to reflect. You got to know yourself and you got to hold yourself accountable and work on those things that we don't want to work on and do that shadow work. And that's what's really going to set you free in the end.
Absolutely. It can be scary. It's so much easier to blame and shame and say it's outside of myself and it's somebody else is doing it to me. And there are things that are unbelievably hard to let go of in your body. But when you do, of course, the truth does set you free. It does really set you free. Would you agree, Gayle?
I experienced childhood abuse. My mother had psychological problems. I don't know if she was psychotic or bipolar. She was never actually diagnosed. She tried to kill herself and went into a psychiatric facility for a short time, but was never really given medication. I was raised in an era where, have you ever heard the expression, spare the rod, spoil the child? My mother hit me and my sister with her hand. Because my mother had mental problems, we could never figure out why she would hit us. She would just get angry for whatever reason, and this connected to my ex-husband who would hit me. And people would say to me, what did you do? My best girlfriend, when I finally had the strength to tell her what my ex-husband was doing to me, I was so embarrassed and ashamed for what he was doing to me. And I told her, and she said to me, my best friend of 40 some years, she said to me, what are you doing to make him treat you like that? I said, nothing. I'm not doing anything to make him do that. He is just simply choosing to do that to me. And that was the same thing with my mother. I could go walk through the room and she would run after me, grab me, and beat the crap out of me. And I was like, I don't understand why she's doing this to me. And she would have no rhyme or reason why she would do it, but she would be doing it. And I couldn't figure out why. And it's like, she didn't give me, unfortunately, I did not grow up with lots of hugs and kisses. I did not grow up with a lot of affection. I was in gymnastics. I was in band. I was in plays. My parents did not come in and see me at my event, my things. I wasn't told, oh, you can do anything you want to do. No, I didn't get that from my mother. I got that from my babysitter, Diana. I had her in my life. And believe it or not, she's 83 years old now. And we're still friends. And she still said to me, you can do anything you want. You can accomplish anything. And her voice is in my brain. Every time I heard something positive, it was from Diana, my babysitter, not from my mother, because I only got negative from my mother. And the negative that I got from my mother about, that doesn't look good on you. You're too skinny. You're too fat. You're too this. You're too that. I always wore hand-me-down clothes from my sisters, so the clothes never fit me. My body image was all screwed up because of that. I didn't realize any of them actually until very recently, when I finally found a really good therapist who helped explain all of this to me. And to me, that all of this abuse that I received as a child totally connected as to why I accepted this man who abused me and why it felt so comfortable to be abused by him.
You've raised something important for any woman listening. There is a theme of whatever level of disempowerment, trauma, or abuse, those patterns that we stay stuck in is always connected to that question, what did I do wrong? When you don't know how to solve that question, you will keep repeating the pattern over and over again. Whether that question came from being the small child. Why are they not there? Why don't they love me? Why do they keep telling me off? Why are they sometimes flipping and changing? Maybe it's a medical reason. Maybe they've got depression. Maybe they had abuse themselves. But even as a child, you can feel that instability in someone, even if they're trying their best. When someone hasn't healed themselves, their energy is all over the place. They can be chaotic. They're not grounded. So when you are aware of that, you're trying to work out, why is this person suddenly nice to me and not nice to me? That is a normal stage of development when we all try to work out, why does somebody love me and why do they not? But of course, when we get rewired and we start to go towards the dark thing, here's this big, dangerous looking animal, and I'm going to go, whoopee, let's go towards that because I know it. It looks familiar to me. I'm comfortable with that. And of course, as you said, Amy, the woman who always dates the same man or woman, when you start to reflect, is that you realize it's not just in one place in your life. That was the biggest shift for me, was going, I was attracting female relationships that were abusive and bullying, even in ways that were disregarding and putting me down and making me small. I was attracting men just the same. It wasn't a gender. It was a reflection of what I thought of myself, because I was still trying to work out, what was I doing wrong because I wanted somebody else to love me? I was still trying to heal that little girl inside of me who was going, but I can't survive without you loving me. That shift of becoming the woman, the empowerment shift from disempowerment to empowerment, is a bit of going, but I don't need you anymore. I'm not a child. I can be a fully fledged adult who's financially free, physically free, mentally free, sexually free. I can be the whole version of myself. I can step into my empowerment because I'm not looking as the little girl going, will you love me and feed me and take care of me? I need to make you happy. Whether that accepts you beating the shit out of me, or mentally beating the shit out of me, or emotionally beating the shit out of me, or sexually beating the shit out of me, whatever that form, I don't need people like that anymore. I love that everyone's clapping their hands. I'm just interrupting this episode to let you know about the upcoming Rich, Sexy and Free 10-day reset challenge. Oh, you don't want to miss this challenge. It's an opportunity to do exactly what it says on the tin through a system that I have developed over the last 30 years and something I use myself. So if you're wanting 2025 to be the year that you're more aligned with your energy, your true self, your value, then you're going to want to check this out. It kicks off on February the 3rd, but the doors will still be open until the end of that week. Don't miss this opportunity. I would love to have you there if you want a richer, sexier, freer life as you, in your power. Sound exciting? Just head on over to richsexyandfree.com and you can find all the details there, and we look forward to seeing you inside the challenge. And see, I would love to know your feedback on that. Does that resonate with you in that shift?
Yes, it so resonates with me. And unfortunately, we all have the same thread going through us with the abuse and the trauma that we've all experienced in different ways. We didn't have a chance to love ourselves. We didn't know how to love ourselves. Just recently, I was looking at a picture of myself when I was about 14. And I remember I used to hang out with a girlfriend of mine, and she was always prettier. She was always smarter. She always had the boyfriends. She was always cooler in my head. And now at 52, I was really pretty young girl. And I'm like, wait a minute. I always felt like I just blended in with everybody. I never stood out. And it just hit me actually very recently that it wasn't that I was physically unattractive. It was that my energy that I had, that I carried with myself, since I've changed that toxic energy and let go of people and places and things, I now look at that same young girl through a different lens. And she was a really pretty girl.
Yes. And I know that myself. I look at pictures, I remember feeling so overweight, thinking I was so fat. And I look back now and think, oh my God, she was tiny and so skinny and starving for love, starving for life and energy. But in my head, I was just so full of shit, like literally energetic, emotional shit. I know that so much of this will resonate. Let's give our beautiful listeners a sharing of what has been your greatest, most successful tool that you've used and continue to use, perhaps, to bring you into your empowerment. Maybe use it daily, maybe use it every week. Something that has stayed with you on this journey that you know is your go-to in your toolbox. Perhaps more than just doing the dishwasher, but that your go-to tool. Maybe it's meditating, maybe it's dancing, maybe it's movement. What is your most successful tool? I will share that for mine. I would say being in the sea or water or swimming is higher than meditation. Being in nature, yes, but being in water, I swim, I'm in the bath, I'm a water being. That makes me feel like myself. It makes me feel light. It makes me feel free. So what are yours?
I
There you
have
go.
to say that for 53 years now, I have practiced Nichiren Buddhism, and it is a form of active meditation. I chant Nam Myoho Renge Kyo. It means devotion to the mystic law of cause and effect through sound, meaning we don't understand how it works. Like, I don't understand how electricity works in my house, but I can flick the switch and the lights go on and off. I don't understand how my car works, but that doesn't mean I can't drive it. So I chant Nam Myoho Renge Kyo, and I can change my karma. And I'm chanting Nam Myoho Renge Kyo. I think of world peace. Okay, so I chant for world peace, but I also chant for health, and I chant for my other friends to overcome cancer and to have good health, and for my sister and for a lot of other things. But chanting has helped me when I was overcoming the abuse and cancer. I feel I couldn't have gotten through it without the chanting.
I suppose that's a bit like Ho'oponopono as well. It's the same sort of prayer, that voice activation. I love that. When I'm really in worship, I sing. It isn't so much the songs that I sing, but singing to the divine for me is a great way of also being at peace and in alignment and raising my vibe.
My go-to that brings me back into my power and into myself is really angry, heavy metal music. I shout the lyrics as loud as I can. And oh my God, just at the end of doing just a few of my favorite songs, I am healed and ready to go. Since I was a teenager, and it got me through some pretty dark times. It helped me put a lot of things into perspective. They write some wonderful lyrics that just hit home. If you're in your car and maybe going a little faster than the speed limit at the same time, you just go down the road and headbang.
But I love that, because most of my clients would tell you that I do quite a lot of rage work.
Okay.
And over the years of working with kids, young people, adults, I've worked the full gamut. Is that coming into empowerment is moving it through your body, and that jumping, shouting and screaming, bringing the energy through you from your voice, from your movement, from the hand movements, bringing it all out. I wouldn't say I go to one particular tune. I have, depending on my mood. Right.
yeah.
What about you, Nancy?
So if any of you know, I had a near-death experience in 2019, which completely changed everything for me. I had a stroke and I had a conversation with God. It was the beginning of changing my perspective. I've really gotten into Christian worship. I don't read scripture. I don't know much about the Bible. I was raised Catholic. There's the one quote that faith the size of a mustard seed can move mountains. Due to the abuse that I suffered, one of the biggest obstacles that I've overcome is struggling with severe depression. When I did that in my teenage years, I never had hope. And now changing my perspective and actually visualizing the mustard seed and how tiny it is. If you can really just muster faith the size of a mustard seed, like the dishwasher, it creates the momentum.
That's such a beautiful point, Nancy, because that momentum, that law of attraction, when you're getting onto the right vibe, it doesn't take long, 13 seconds. Stay there, get that working of that faith. I am a big fan of Faith. My beloved dog, who died only 6 weeks ago, was called Faith, and everything that she represented. But faith for me has been, we talk about it quite a lot on this podcast, about faith and God and how you want to define it, divine, universe. I give it a million names. Your personal description is how you see it. I would say that has changed over my lifetime, the names that I've called it. But I think that element of faith, as you said, not having hope when you're younger. I've openly talked about the fact that I wanted to die twice in my life. Nearly did it the first time. Second time, I reached a point of going, I can't even manage to kill myself. I so don't know what to do. But it was in those moments when I found my absolute faith. It was that moment of total surrender, of going, the hope, the light, the truth of myself were the moments that I really found who I was. And as you say, when you can surrender, when you can find a way to surrender, whether it's rock music, hard metal, whether it's chanting. My favorite song out of Christian worship music at the moment is Waymaker, which just gets me going. Love a good miracle song, whether it's a pop song or swimming in the sea or dancing, whatever way you find to connect to that bit of light, that bit of light that is the faith, that is the hope. And you start to bring that back in, and you start to switch on the switch in your internal house and let the light come in. It can be so small, but once you focus to that point, it lights your whole inner room up. And then you just need to turn up the dial and you become this energy of hope. And without hope, you're never going to make that shift. It's the shift from disempowerment, as we've been talking about today, whether it's getting to rock bottom and choosing yourself and saying, I'm leaving this fucking marriage because I'm not going to die and I choose to love myself. Whether it's in that moment of just having a negative thought about yourself and going, no, I choose to love myself. I'm now 49. My body is not the same as it was as a kid. I'd say love myself more than I ever did when I was little. Whether it's in that tiny moment or the big moment, yeah, I'm going to find that faith. I'm going to find that hope. I'm going to find that dream. To move forward, there is a new day. There is a new start. It can start again now. So with that in mind, and you've shared such incredible stories, the pain and the depth, but also where we're moving to, and the tools that you've used, I would like you to share what suggestions you would offer to somebody else who is in that point of wanting to shift.
I guess it depends on where your background is. For me, like I said, I was raised pretty strict Catholic, and I really turned to Christianity and more so just having a relationship with God. But whatever it is for you, whatever that tool is, just put all of your energy into that. And I really feel for me, because when I'm having a hard time, like I said, if I listen to worship music, it changes the energy. It changes the way I feel. It changes the way I look at, and that really...
I'm just laughing because what you're saying is beautiful, but we can all see on the video, you've disappeared behind a whole beam of sunlight. Echoing your point, Amy and Gayle, what would you suggest?
Amy, go ahead.
So I absolutely suggest, finding that one thing that brings you peace. I do attend church, even though I listen to heavy metal music, but I'm just a child of God, just like everybody else. And, it's whatever works. Lean into that. But to find your tribe of people. Maybe it's not the people that you happen to deal with every day. Most of my friends actually live across the country. I have very few friends. I only allow people into my life. It's people who I know are not going to take advantage of me energetically, financially, or anything like that. Most of the time, it is people who's been, I guess, wronged or something like that in their lives. And so they've been through the work. And so I seek people out who are going to be a good fit. So that's kind of what I do. And that's what I suggest other people do just starting out.
I would also probably put a caveat on that, of course, of being aware that we can attract people at the stages we're at, but we must also make sure we're attracting people at the stages we want to be. Because you can end up with lots of people who are still stuck in the blaming and the shaming, or haven't done the work, or are wanting you to fall into that pattern, or that they're just happy to stay in the survivor phase, but not the thriver phase. So it's all different stages. It's finding those people, isn't it? It's finding the right people. What would you suggest, Gayle?
I love the idea of finding your tribe. Most of my people are across the country too. I have friends here in Vegas, but I've only lived here 11 years, so I don't have a lot of friends here. I would like to move in a different direction with my suggestion. I believe in finding a therapist. I believe in finding, shall we say, professional help. The problem with that is finding the right therapist. I was very fortunate that towards the end of my marriage, I found an incredible woman whose husband was military, and she was very experienced in dealing with other women whose husbands had military, and she had a great deal of experience dealing with abuse.
I would echo that, Gayle, as somebody who was an expert in both love and unhealthy relationships, it's very important to work with somebody who truly understands human development. And sometimes when you're trying to navigate your way out, although it may seem like an expense, and it is, but it's an expense in investing in the rest of your life and in your health and happiness. If you want to find out more about healthy relationships, I would recommend my book, The Big Book of Love, Loving Yourself, Dating, Love, Loving Relationships, which has got 40 years of experience around understanding what it is that you're actually looking for and what it doesn't look like, because that's the first thing I know Nancy mentioned today about the fact that you're searching something you don't actually know what it looks like. And I wrote the book as a result of not only many years as a therapist, but many years of actually trying to learn something that wasn't available when I was a kid. I wrote it for myself, to help lots of people. And as we wrap up, and it's been the most incredible conversation, sharing about your own stories, which have been amazing. And I know that you said about your own books and stuff. So how people can find you and how they can learn more about your personal books or working with, etc.
Yeah, you can find me on www.passionfrompain.com. And there you can sign up for coaching sessions or my new course on finding the strength and courage within you to actually go on your healing journey and to continue down that road of healing.
Nancy, please share with us how they can find out more about your very powerful story, everything you've learned, your wisdom.
Sure. So you can Amazon. My book is called Stroke of Love, and just put in Nancy Spano. It's also in Barnes and Nobles. And check out my website is strokeoflovebook.com. And that's
Gayle, can you share where people can find out more about your amazing book?
My book is also on Amazon, and it's From Victim to Victorious. You can contact me at thegaylenovak.com.
You can check out in the show notes. You'll be able to find everything. And of course, as ever, you can find me on Instagram, on Facebook, all at Rich, Sexy and Free. Ladies, I want to thank you so much for being on today. It's been the most incredible time. What amazing stories. It's been great to connect with you today. But before you leave, if you want to find out more about how I can help you personally, just simply go ahead and visit richsexyandfree.com. And I look forward to seeing you next week on the podcast.